Okay, doing a quick sound check, make sure everything is running and working. Before I get going, this is going to be the final episode for the year with Weird Science. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and check our audio, and see what's going on here. I don't see nothing popping up on any of the platforms. Let me There we go. YouTube has popped up. Let me see what it sounds like. Making sure it sounds good. And oh, gotta get that background up and running. I keep forgetting to put the video on loop, and it does that. Another good reason why I should always check. Audio sounds good on YouTube. Let's see if DLive works today. No, it does not want to work. But YouTube is up and running. Let me check and see what's going on here. Rumble isn't even running, and I'm doing it straight off of Rumble Studio. Oh, there it goes. So alright, so it's kicked in finally. Let me go in and check my go live on DLive. Sometimes I can get that straightened out by coming in here and messing around with it. It's not always the case, but sometimes it does work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, we may have to go without Rumble Studio today, which everything's muted out right now. I am in the process of trying to get DLive going. It doesn't look like it's going to pop in. It's just getting pretty bad like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute out, do some music, and I will be back with the next and final episode for the year of Weird Science. I've changed my mind. I'm not going to use my story from yesterday about the algorithm on the cut. I'm just going to go ahead and not do a recap this year for Weird Science and finish it off with that story. I'd rather do it that way on Weird Science rather than do it on the cut, and that'll leave me an opportunity to do a recap episode on episode 12 of the cut when it comes on. So let me do a final list. And it sounds good so far, but I've got to get everything up and set up like I had it. Uh, Just I had to re-put that matrix background on there again, and everything got covered up, so I have to go in, turn them off, and put them back on. So, with that being said, I am going to go in here. I'm going to put the background music on and let you guys enjoy it. This is from Mr. Robot, aka Illuminati, on Rumble. You can find his channel at Hacker Radio. If you guys enjoy this music, be sure to stop in to his channel, listen to more, make comments, tell him how much you like it, and subscribe if you want to. So with that, I'm going to shut up now, put the music on, and I'll be right back.
Awakening from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. Awakening from history, awakening from duality. The liberation of the human soul to consciousness of the one and all. The activation of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man. A new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing into unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery. A mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles, plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles, plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Hardly had his Hail Highness heard the easy hedgehog when he hit the humming bee by the hunter who had horrible beetles in the human hall. I love to hear the horse's hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard. I'm hurrying around to hunt up hogs. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles, plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, thistle sifter.
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his star-born accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waves at his command. Empire stretched from bow, big stones to Mayan sand. Monolith stacked like Legos blocks no crane could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven, stories untold. Ages of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Go turn to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Vessels of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, the coalition all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis where gods walked the sea.
Watch the fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hummed warnings, but they ignored the signs. Sky split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sang screaming, but blueprints survive. Baalbek's foundation, stones that defy modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they align the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, the coalition all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of law, 10 princes
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, Orgun fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones and the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis taller than gods, crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammoths shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up Nepistim, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up Tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds, stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset, scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist, cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes, built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now desert bones whisper where cedars once soared. Man's just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiahuanaco, their codes etched in awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of law. 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea. So when you see Stonehenge, Angkor Wat spire, know Atlantis lives in the quantum choir. The gods were myths, their mentors in code. Rise from the ashes, or repeat what they owe. In 20 years, a block every 2 minutes. Hieroglyphs scream their pride, but not a how and what's written. Modern science scratches heads, these structures can't be mimicked. Copper tools, now scholars tripping, logic thinly stretched and twisted. Ran an obelisk, 1,000 tons dragged across the sand. Today's cranes can't lift a fifth, what force moved them by hand? Call the ancients primitive, yo, that's pure delusion. Physicists today need miracles to crack their fusion. The high priest of Kemet mapped the stars with precision, while modern minds stay chained to 3D prison. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden with an allegorical crypt. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in simple living secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code, key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemy pyramidode. The Sphinx wears water scars, a flood from ancient skies. Explosives crack the pyramids, no tombs, just hollow lies. Money stolen, nah, that's ego talk. A weak hypothesis, truths buried in the stars, encrypted in the myths. Sacred geometry, pagan songs, the roots of Christendom. Pythagoras knelt at their feet, Jesus learned the kingdom. Temples mirror Orion, Aztecs trace the same glow. Megalithic GPS, what's buried below. They split the lotus stem, hid wisdom at the core. Solomon's temple, just a copy of what came before. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden wisdom, allegorical crypts. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge, close and simple living. Secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemy pyramidode. Iron to gold, alchemy's flame. They mastered the unseen. Telekinetic levitation, Mars dust in their genes. Critics laugh, aliens but the proof's in the plasma. Why is the Dogon tribe no serious? Was a binary drama. Myths of metaphors, the truth's too bright to hold. Scattered in ruins worldwide, a map etched in gold. They call themselves Negeru, gods with cosmic ships. Gifted fire, math and law, then dipped beyond the eclipse. Now academia's gatekeepers mock what they can't measure. But the scales of Ma'at weigh soul, not tech or treasure. The Zet Tepi dawn when gods walked as king. Left blueprints in Gobekli Tepe and the Nazca line. The emerald tablets truth burns through the scholar's denial. We're echoes of starlight reclaiming our trial.
When you stare at the sky, feel the ache in your chest. That's ancestral memory. We're all cosmic guests. The pyramids home a hymn, rising call the divine. As above, so below, till the world's realigned.
Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt. The truth's a spiral, eternity script. In a language of symbolism, we're the gods we've been missing.
Welcome everybody to Weird Science. Tonight I am going to do something that I usually don't do when it comes to my series. Usually I do a recap of everything that I've gone over in this series for the year, but I'm not going to do that with this one because yesterday I did my second to the last episode of The Cut, and I was going to add what I'm going to use tonight on Weird Science into that one. But what I had on the notes for that one was a little bit too long, and I couldn't add this one in. So what I said what I was going to do was go ahead and skip the basically where my recap for that series and do what I'm going to do now here on Weird Science. But then I decided last night that I'm going to go ahead and just use it on Weird Science as my last topic, and be done with Weird Science for this year and come back next year with some more topics. So that's what I decided to do. I'd rather recap on The Cut anyhow, so that I can go over some of the stuff that I've discussed and kind of give my thoughts and everything on them. Those were notes that I'd taken over the years that I really wanted to do a proper video and audio of and get it documented. So that's something that I would rather be able to recap rather than Weird Science, because this is the first year I've done this one, so I'm okay with that. So, with that being said, I am going to get everything set up. I got to get my little head back up there and get everything going the way it needs to go. The wonderful world of weirdness needs to be in front, and I am good. So, with that being said, I'm going to start the story. I hope you guys enjoy. Actually, I got to get it to the beginning. That should have been done before I even got here. See, I got distracted. My whole day ended up getting rescheduled because I had an appointment that fell through, and now I have to get all organized again because it went against my schedule. So here we go. An algorithm is often defined in the simplest possible way as a set of instructions designed to carry out a task or solve a problem. That definition is neat and precise, but when we look more deeply, we find that an algorithm is not simply a lifeless list of rules. It's a rhythm, a structured progression that requires energy to be set into motion. Without excitation, an algorithm is nothing more than potential. With excitation, it becomes a living sequence that evolves over time, moving through states, and eventually settles again into rest. To understand the life cycle of an algorithm, we need to look not only at the logical structure of its steps, but also at the physical systems that makes its existence possible. From circuits pulsed with voltage or to qubits pushed into superpositions, the act of running an algorithm is always a dance of excitation and resolution. The life cycle of an algorithm begins in the ground state. The ground state is the condition of rest, the lowest energy configuration a system can occupy. In the case of a classical computer, the ground state might be a stable arrangement of zeros written into memory cells with no switching activity taking place. In the case of a quantum computer, it could be qubits aligned in a known initial configuration, usually the simplest and most stable one. In the brain, it might be neurons at their resting potential, silent until a spike of energy excites them into action. The ground state represents pure potential. Nothing has happened, but the possibility of action is already contained within it. To move out of the ground state, excitation must occur. Excitation is the entry of energy into the system. It is the pulse that starts the clock, the photon that lifts an electron, the chemical signal that pushes a neuron above its threshold. In computing devices, excitation is structured by design. It does not come as random noise, but as precise signals, voltage change, and oscillations that trigger specific transitions. When a processor begins to execute an algorithm, it does not simply wake into chaos. It is excited in a patterned way so that its journey through states is meaningful and controlled. Excitation is thus the opening note in the music of computation. Once excited, the system enters a series of transitions. This is the body of algorithm, the part where steps unfold one after another. Each step is a state in which the system exists temporarily before being moved along by further excitations. In a classical algorithm, these states are defined as the logical conditions of bits switching between 0 and 1. The rhythm of the clock guides them, ensuring that changes happen in a consistent sequence. In a quantum algorithm, the states are uh, superpositions of possibilities, a cloud of potential outcomes that evolve under carefully tuned pulses. Biological or neuromorphic systems, the states are patterns of spikes, pulses, or field potentials spreading through a network of neurons. In every case, the movement through states has a rhythm, a kind of musicality that is fundamental to the algorithm's unfolding. The rhythm of voltage pulses in classical circuits, and that is one of the clearest illustrations of this idea. When a transistor switches on and off, it follows a timed oscillation. This oscillation is nothing less than a sound wave expressed in electrical form, a structured vibration that the system listens to and follows. Every digital algorithm, therefore, has at its base a hidden rhythm, a beat that drives its motion forward. This hidden sound is the true foundation of computation, the unseen drummer behind every logical step. The excitation that began the process is now stretched out across many beats, many pulses, shaping the entire journey of the algorithm. As the algorithm progresses, it explores possibilities. A simple arithmetic algorithm may move through straightforward states, while a more complex one, such as those used in artificial intelligence or quantum computation, may spread through vast landscapes of potential outcomes. At this stage, the system is far from its ground state. It is alive with excitation, holding patterns, correlations, and entanglements that carry meaning. It is similar to a musical composition building towards a climax, with notes layered upon notes, creating tension and richness. Each transition is necessary, each step part of the structure that will eventually resolve. Resolution is the next great phase of the algorithm or the algorithmic life cycle. No system can remain excited indefinitely. The natural pull of the ground state demands a return to stability. The algorithm, too, must reach its conclusion. Resolution in computing means that the system settles into an output, a final arrangement that encodes the solution to the problems posed. In classical systems, this might be a set of numbers written into memory. In quantum systems, it is the collapse of superpositions into a single measured result. In biological systems, it is the emergence of a pattern of spikes that represents recognition or decision. The resolution stage is the return to stillness, but not the same stillness as before. It is a new ground state, one that now carries the imprint of the journey taken. It is important to recognize the resolution, or that it is important to recognize that resolution is not failure or dissipation. It is the natural end of the cycle. Without resolution, the system would be locked in endless excitation, unable to produce meaning. Just as music must eventually resolve into silence or cadence, algorithms must produce outputs. The beauty of this cycle is that the ground state always allows for new excitation. After one algorithm finishes, the system is ready to energize again, or to be energized again, to embark on another journey of states. This cyclic movement between ground state, excitation, evolution, and resolution is what gives computation a dynamic character. Excuse me. Now let us look at algorithms not just as an abstract logical structure, but as a phenomena that embody rhythm and sound. Sound is fundamentally vibration, structured oscillation through time. Voltage pulses are vibrations. Clock signals are oscillations. Neural spikes are rhythmic patterns. In every case, algorithms are carried not by static instructions alone, but by dynamic rhythms that animate matter. When we say that algorithms begin as sounds, we are pointing to this deep truth. They require rhythmic excitation to exist. Without oscillation, there is no computation. Without beat, there is no flow of states. Consider again the role of ground state in this musical analogy. The ground state is like silence before a performance. It is not empty, but pregnant with potential. Excitation is the first note, the first strike of the drum, the first breath of the singer. The algorithm then flows like melody, structured and sequential, sometimes simple, sometimes complex. Resolution is the final chord, the setting back into silence, a silence transformed by what has been heard. In this sense, algorithms are not only mathematical or logical, but also artistic, echoing the same cycles of tension and release that define music. To understand how excitation functions in specific systems, we can examine examples across physical, computational, and biological realms. In atomic systems, excitation occurs when electrons absorb energy and leap to higher orbits. They cannot remain there forever, and eventually they fall back, releasing photons. The analogy to computation is strong. excitation lifts the system into higher states. The resolution returns it with output energy. In digital circuits, excitation comes from oscillation of the clock, which drive switches in a precise rhythm. The ground state of a circuit without a clock is inert, lifeless. With excitation, it comes alive, each pulse driving a cascade of state changes. In quantum systems, excitation is delivered by finely tuned electromagnetic pulses, pushing qubits into superpositions where they can explore many possibilities at once. When measurement comes, resolution collapses this spread of possibilities into a single outcome. Biological systems, particularly the human brain, showed this cycle vividly. Neurons at rest sit in their ground state. A synaptic signal excites them, pushing them above threshold. A fire in action potential, a rhythmic pulse of voltage. Networks of neurons then move through states of excitation, patterns of spikes that carry information. Eventually, the neurons return to resting potential, ready for the next cycle. Here again, we see the same pattern: ground state, excitation, evolution through states, resolution, and rest. The life cycle of an algorithm is mirrored in the life cycle of biological thought. The connection between algorithm and rhythm is not a metaphor only. It is embedded in the physics of how information is processed. The structured excitation that drives computation is rhythmic by necessity. A computer without rhythm cannot function. A quantum computer without pulses cannot manipulate qubits. A brain without oscillations cannot think. Rhythm is the skeleton upon which algorithms are hung. It is the deep sound that underlies logic, the beating heart of every computation. Excitation also introduces the possibility of error and chaos. Not all excitations are structured. Noise, not, it got me, not all excitations are structured. Noise can enter a system, pushing it into unwanted states. Random vibrations can disrupt the clean rhythm needed for computation. This is why modern states require not only excitation but also control. Filtering and error correction. Structured excitation is the difference between music and noise, between computation and chaos. Algorithms thrive only when their excitation is tuned, guided, and made coherent. Over time, this view of algorithms as rhythmic excitation helps us understand their philosophical place in nature. The universe itself seems to follow algorithmic patterns, with states evolving under laws that resemble structured rules. From atoms to galaxies, excitation and resolution are everywhere. The ground state of matter is disturbed. It evolves through structured interaction and it settles again. The great cosmic algorithm plays out across scales, driven by rhythms both vast and minute. Our human algorithms running in our human algorithms running in silicon or neurons are echoes of this deep universal pattern. In, in practical terms, understanding excitation in algorithms has guided the design of new forms of computation. Quantum annealing, for example, relies on beginning in a ground state and carefully exciting the system in a controlled way, allowing it to explore a landscape of possibilities, and then slowly guiding it back to a new ground state that represents the solution. This is nothing more than a sophisticated version of the algorithmic life cycle, crafted with exquisite precision. Neuromorphic computing also imitates the rhythm or the rhythmic excitation of biological neurons, recognizing that computation can emerge from pulses and rhythms rather than static logic alone. Seen from this perspective, the boundary between computation, physics, and music dissolves. An algorithmic an, an algorithmic or an algorithm. An algorithm is not only code on paper, it is rhythm incarnate, sound in hidden form, energy structured into meaningful progression. It lives only when excited. It journeys only through rhythmic states, and it resolves only when it returns to rest. The cycle repeats endlessly, the dance of excitation and ground state played out in machines, in brains, and perhaps in the universe itself. Thus, the life cycle of an algorithm is not merely a technical matter, it is a story of potential energy, rhythm, and resolution. It begins in stillness, rises into motion, explores states with structured rhythm, and then returns to stillness transformed. It is the sound of silence giving way to melody, then fading again. To understand algorithms in this way is to see them not as dry sequences of logic, but as living processes bound to the fundamental dynamics of nature. They are music written in voltage, rhythm, expressed in light, thought made of excitation and rest. They are the sound of matter thinking, the heartbeat of computation itself. And there we go. That was pretty good. I was really happy with getting that down and over with so that I could actually get it on Weird Science. Now I'm happy with the idea of it being short too because that means I can actually have some extra time so that I can do a recap on some of the topics that I have been talking about when it comes to um, the the topics I've done in previous episodes this year. I really was wanting to get into that. Now, in my first episode, it was my first topic. I was talking about how the brain interprets and reacts to information. and how it's intertwined with fields of electrophysiology and neuromodulation and the identification of biomarkers. Now, this is something that is very, very important. Here lately, I've been having a lot of conversations with Nancy Planeta about electromagnetic, uh, well, electromagnetic fields and how all of this interacts with the brain. And I really have been finding it really good. She's been really opening up and showing a lot of her work that she's been doing over the years when it comes to writing. And that's something that I like about Nancy is like I can actually have these conversations with her, and she's into it. She likes doing it. I was also able to talk with Tanhai Tran as well as Mark Edworthy on this when we were doing Tech Talk, and they kind of got bored with me. They didn't want to hear all that stuff about sound. You know what I mean? That stuff doesn't sound too attractive to people who are into tech these days. And I understand that because it's not really that exciting of a topic. You know what I mean? But I can tell you that it is a good topic. It's a really good topic, actually. If you're into that kind of stuff, it really is, because you start learning about what's really, really going on with this new technology that's being put out. And one key word that I have learned by doing this that I need to pay more attention to is biomarkers. Biomarkers are very, very important, because I also have had conversations with another person called Vicky Voss or Victoria Voss, on Vixen's Vault, which is through Dregus Production, and we've been talking with Nancy, all of us together, and she told us about her husband Arpad, who I mentioned some of his work, and I think it was it was probably that first episode too, where I had talked about how biomarkers work in chemical plumes, and people who are involved with research into finding like dead bodies and stuff like that, and they actually are developing technology that could basically take the place of dogs that have regularly been the ones to try to find dead bodies buried. You know what I mean? And forensics has gone that far where they can actually detect the chemical plumes of bodies decomposing with electrical devices. And I find that really, really amazing. I really do find that amazing. That was probably one of my, there's been a few of them this year, don't get me wrong, but that was one of my mind-blowing experiences doing these shows this year. I was like, wow, because I was already talking about computer tech, computers and technology and all that stuff, and then that just got laid on me. Besides that, if anybody's been watching my videos, they know how I was doing with the cosmic weave, and I was working on that too, and learning about the human brain and the thalamus and how that works with the world around us. And you have all of these frequencies and vibrations, whatever you want to call them, that work within the brain that also are similar to vibrations that are outside of us that control certain things in nature. Like when you see birds migrating, that usually has to do with, I believe it was a delta or a theta like wave. And then Nancy here lately was talking about electromagnetic waves also influencing the migration patterns of animals too. So it just kind of made me think about it a little bit more. So this is stuff that I'm going to eventually dive deeper into. I wish I could have done more when it came to this, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. I love the idea of looking at technology in combination with biological systems and things of that nature, because that's exactly what I've been finding out. I ended up learning about, or learning more. I remember hearing about wetware back in the 90s. I remember seeing the first time I was even ever made aware of wetware, I believe, was on the X Files when I was younger. Seeing an episode where it was about wetware, and this had to do with biological intelligence rather than what's become popular today, artificial intelligence or LLMs, however you want to say that. Um, they've been developing wetware, which is biological in nature, and that was something that I really did enjoy getting into and learning, where neurons that were in a dish could be trained to play a video game. That's just completely mind blowing. I thought that was really awesome. So even though it was hard, to be honest with you, to find all these topics for weird science, it was very, very worth it. It was worth going through and doing the research and pulling up stuff and getting it all organized and together. But I do have to tell you one thing, man, with the technology that's out and that all the stuff that everybody's so used to today, like it's no big deal to them. It's really hard to find what people would consider weird science today. It really, really is. I do find that very, very interesting, because I actually had some material that pertained to older science too, not just the newer stuff. So I was really lucky when it comes to that. But in what I was saying though, if you guys are interested in this stuff, check out or make one of your keywords to pay attention to biomarkers. That is very important. Now, I knew about chemical plumes and having devices that could pick up like chemical spills and things of that nature, but it never even dawned on me that these devices could be trained to find dead bodies. That just blew me out of the water. I thought that was really, really, really cool. You know. Now, moving on from there, I would like to say one thing too that I was really glad about doing this year, and that was being able to get into topics like the Dysons, Freeman Dyson, and the Dyson spheres. That was an area of interest that I have been wanting to get into for quite a long time, because that has to do with astro engineering and um, huge, huge structures that are that are possibly being placed around the sun, or stars, and they're pulling energy from it and using it as a energy source to travel across space. It's a theory, don't get me wrong, but it's a very, very cool theory that I really, really wanted to get into, because like that's something that I really think should be talked a lot more about. Astronomers, they've been scanning like millions of stars and galaxies, looking for this kind of stuff, searching for this kind of like, um, I don't know, it would be excessive energy is what it would be. It would be an infrared excessive energy, leftover energy after they had pulled this stuff. Like there would be leftover energy that would literally be detectable. And they've been doing this research for quite some time. And I was really, really glad that I was able to get into that and really talk about it. Here recently, I also, um, besides uh, besides talking about the Dyson sphere and all of that, I went into a um, deeper, I guess, a deeper, or I went deeper into the subject because there's a lot of, things that are involved in that. It's not just the Dyson sphere, you know what I mean? So I was really glad that I had the opportunity to actually get into that. If you guys ever get a chance and you like to read, that is one thing to get into, which I think is always good. Now, whenever I learned about Dish Brain, that was off of Nancy Paletta too. She had posted a link in her chat on Teams for the Vixens Vault, and she had it posted, and I believe it was for CL. I forgot what it was. I know what it is, but I went ahead and I did. It was Coracle Labs who did it. Them. Yeah, they did it. I believe they actually used biological engineering to put neurons in a guy's head that was he was physically handicapped because of some injuries and stuff, and it was severe. It was something to that effect, and it was starting to give him the basic movements to where he could actually move around and speak, I believe, or it could have been something to that effect. It's been a little while since I've covered it, but I went and I checked that out, and that's when I started digging a little bit deeper, and I learned about Dish Brain. Now, Dish Brain is what I'm referring to whenever I talk about teaching neurons in a dish how to play video games. That's what that was about. They literally were able to teach these neurons how to play a video game. And mind you, when I say that, I'm talking. They taught the neurons how to do this, and there was no technology hooked up to it. It was the neurons on their own, separate from the human body or any other kind of animal. Just the neurons. Okay, they were able to teach it how to play a video game according to its responses. Now, if it did the right thing, it was given rewards, and they didn't say it outright, but like if they didn't give the right response, they were punished for it. Is what I'm guessing. That could be conjecture, because and I do want to point that out because my buddy Mark Edworthy loves to tell me when I'm talking conjecture. So when he's not around, I guess I should tell people that could be conjecture, you know. But that was uh, that was what I learned there, and it was pretty interesting. And then come to find out with wetware, they're trying to use the same principles that they're doing with artificial intelligence with the wetware. But the only problem is like these biological chips only have uh, they actually have a lifespan. They can only survive for a certain amount of time before they have to be completely erased or replaced. And when their lifespan is out, that's it. You know what I mean? They can't retain the information that was gained on that. It has to be done from scratch all over again. So I found that pretty interesting too. Um, and later on, maybe if I get the energy to do this stuff, I will do it. Go back through and kind of like write an article on it that's more precise about it. But this is the kind of stuff that I fell into from the get go. You know what I mean? And I really, it just blew my mind away. I actually was able to do a show with Mr. Robot, Sonia, and Michael Paul or Mike Porter, where we sat down and we started talking about consciousness, and we went from just basic concept of consciousness up until we got to technology, and we started talking about technology. But at that time, Michael or Mike Porter had to leave, and it was just me, Mr. Robot, and Sonia. So I thought um, that was a pretty cool experience. I believe I did that on Live with Roger Hansen. I don't believe I did it here on the Wonderful World of Weirdness, but you can find it on Live with Roger Hansen, my main account on YouTube, which is Roger Hansen, and then Live with Roger Hansen has its own channel on Rumble, so you guys can check those out. It was a pretty good show, to be honest with you. We had a pretty good conversation about it, and that was only the first episode of this year when it came to weird science. Uh, well, second one too, I believe, is where I actually got into the dish brain. Um, so yeah, actually, it's right. I'm just checking my notes. It was the second year or second episode that I actually covered dish brain. And I thought that I thought I was on a pretty good roll with the first episode, and then I did that one, and it just completely blew me out of the water. Um, Now, after I did dish brain, this is where I started getting into the developmental singularity hypothesis. Um, Now, what that one is very weird. That one is kind of the one that I really like the most, but it's not. You know what I mean? It goes along with the theory that I really like a lot. But this one instead goes in another direction that I'm not really too keen on. But instead of us exploring outward, they're suggesting that we explore inward and we make things smaller because, in their theory, they believe that advanced civilizations actually started moving inward and making themselves as well as their technology smaller. And that would explain why we don't pick up on anything in the known universe that we know of, is because instead of them trying to move outward into the galaxy and explore, they're moving inwards, and their energy their traces of energy is smaller than what ours is, which is an interesting concept. It really is. It's an interest. I just don't like it. I don't like the idea of thinking that we're not going to explore outward anymore. I guess is what it is, you know. But they bring some pretty compelling arguments though too. Like they talk about our habits, and if you look at our technology, how it keeps getting smaller and smaller as we get better at finding this new technology. You know, so I do find that to be pretty cool. Um, Now that was one of the black hole theories that I really did like. Is it's These are like very provocative theories that a lot of the mainstream uh, so, mainstream science or scientists, I should say, they like to read about them and everything, but they won't like tell you that they open. They won't openly tell you they agree with it or that they support it or anything. You know what I mean? Um, the one most provocative one is the black hole theories, and that one is the one that I really like when it comes to um, the most it's the most intriguing because they've come up with some completely amazing theories when it comes to black holes. First off, the reason why they do this is because like black holes are the most compact, packed, and efficient structures when it comes to the known universe. You know what I mean? Um, it offers really high energy densities. And plus, with that, you also get time dilation effects. Now, that is where all of this plays out in this theory for me. This is what I really like. Now, the, the, these theories they pose the idea that not only are they like astrophysical phenomena, but they could also be artificial constructs that were engineered by like advanced intelligences, you know, and that would be for the purpose of um, like dense, ultra dense computation. Then they go further with that, and they say that you could even say, or you could hypothesize that maybe entire universes are created within this black hole that creates that time dilation. It slows down time in that universe. And then they could create some kind of supercomputer that would regulate the rate of decay so that it's so that um, the material world wouldn't decay because there's the process of decay in nature. So if you had it close to a black hole and time was slowed down, that material would still decay into nothing. Now, if you had a supercomputer that was able to regulate that so that it was stabilized, you could actually put an entire universe into a black hole and be able to basically transfer your entire civilization into that black hole and prevent the eventual end of the universe is where they're going with that. Like the universe is supposed to be spreading out and going for spreading farther and farther apart, and eventually they believe that it's going to collapse in on itself, and when it does, that'll be the end of everything. And some theories suggest that you could go and put these universes into the black hole, slow time down, and have pretty much every the entire civilization put into that or into that universe, and it would prolong the end of everything. And I find that really, really amazing. That is probably my favorite out of weird science when it comes to that. Um, and if you're into that kind of stuff too, and you want to have a conversation with me about it, I would be more than happy to welcome you onto the show to do an interview or even just to sit down where we have a conversation about it. I really do love that topic. That's the best one out of all of them, in my opinion. But I'm a real big nerd when it comes to that. If you want to hear more about that, just remember the name of it, the developmental singularity hypothesis, and understand that there's like hypothesis that broke off of that one too. That's not a part of that hypothesis, but it spun off of it. So like you've got a whole bunch of ideas that have come out of that. So that right there is what that one was about, and I did that one in the um, second episode. So um, now I also in the second episode went back over um, the whole biological system thing, and I that's where I started talking about Cortical Labs and their biological computer, and that is what I was referring to earlier when I was talking to you. So now they call it the CL1 for future reference if you guys want to check into that. And that was initiated by earlier research into what was referred to as the dish brain experiments, where I was telling you about the neurons being able to, or being were able they were able to train neurons how to play a video game. So I'm really glad I'm scrolling through here now and pulling up the information so that I can give you guys a little bit of information. And it's like I said, check them out. And if you have any feedback on that, or if you want to talk about it, go down into the chat or the comment section. Leave a comment for me, man. I'm willing to talk to anybody anyway that I can when it comes to this stuff. I really love talking about science, believe it or not. And this is about as weird can get when it um, comes to science. I'm not lying to you. Like this is the freaking weirdest of the weirdest, and I've seen a lot of weird science. Trust me, there is a lot out there. So now, after that, when episode 4 came, that's when I decided that I wanted to do an episode that talks about HARP, the High Frequency Active Aerial Research Program. Now, one thing that I pointed out in that I was really glad I was able to cover was the fact that with HARP, a lot of people have this misconception about HARP. Well, first of all, HARP was never classified information. That's the one thing that needs to be understood. It was always open to the public, okay? And like HARP isn't like this conspiracy that people made up that doesn't exist. It actually did exist. And second, with that being said, I need to also point out that the patent for HARP is open to the public free to view by anybody. It was never classified. There was nothing that was ever disclosed. It was always there for anybody to read. So just um, remember that. Now, the original patent, it came out in the 1980s. Okay. As a matter of fact, in the summer of 1987. Okay. And if you guys want to look for it, you look for the method of apparatus for altering a region in the Earth's atmosphere, ionosphere, and or magnosphere. Okay. Now was that was done in Texas, I believe, and you can find the information there. This has always been open to the public, and if you guys want to check it out, check it out. Um, I am so sick of talking about HARP at this moment. I'll talk about it later on, but right now I just really don't want to dive into it. But I do want to tell you that when it comes to HARP, I think how it came about being in the fact that there was actually a there was actually a freaking patent put out on it. Just blows me out of the water, to this day, even to this day. Something that has been so widespread in controversy and rumor just was open to the public the whole time. I find that completely amazing. So yeah, if you guys want to check that out, feel free to check it out. And like I said, man, if you guys have any comments about that, go for it. Put it in here and talk to me about it. Now, in episode 4, I also started talking about the magnetic monopole, and that was where magnetism started taking control when it comes to the stuff that I was bringing up in this series this year, because um, I ended up really getting into this whole magnetic energy and what's going on there. You know what I mean? It was really interesting, especially with magnetic monopoles, because they've been doing research with that for quite a long time. When you see illustrations of people using dry ice in order to have something levitate and move around, that's what that is a part of. It's a part of the magnetic monopole theory, or yeah, that's what the experiment is. It's a magnetic monopole theory, where they, like, if you take a magnet and you cut it in half, everybody knows that instead of it being just north or just south, where you cut it, it becomes the north or the south. So, like, it's north and south before you cut it. And then when you cut it in half, each half will still have a north and a south. Well, with a magnetic monopole, imagine splitting a magnet in half, and the north keeps the north but no south, or the south keeps the south but no north. That is a magnetic monopole, and they've been trying to achieve that. And as I did research into that, it got more and more in depth. They are trying to find out how to create the magnetic monopoles so that they can, well, just according to what has been said, I don't want to throw any kind of conjecture in here, but they're trying to achieve the ability to create magnetic monopoles, because if they do that, then they can justify the Big Bang Theory. Now, according to the Big Bang Theory, after the bang happened, the universe started expanding outward. Now, for scientists, if they can prove that huge amounts of magnetic monopoles were pushing the universe outward, then that would explain, or it would justify their theory on the Big Bang theory. And they said that as the universe spread out farther, there became less and less evidence of magnetic monopoles. That's why they're so rare and they can't be found here on Earth. That is one of the proposed ideas, or the reason for the research into magnetic monopoles, which by itself is pretty interesting. But to this date, they still haven't been able to prove that magnetic monopoles actually exist, just to let everybody know when it comes to that. Um, don't want to be spreading lies, so I'll keep it real, you know what I mean? Now, another thing with magnetic monopoles that I know they were wanting to use it for is I had it at the top of my head too, and I forgot it. Um, they were wanting to. They're using it in research right now, so that they can. Energy. If they can at least, if they can at least emulate magnetic monopoles as close as they can, then they can make the storage capacity, energy usage, all of that when it comes to, especially in computing. If when it comes to stuff like computing and everything and hard drives, they could actually make it to where we don't have to use even half as much of the energy or the storage space that we need to hold the information. You know what I mean? On the hard drives, hard disks, whatever. So I did find that interesting. I actually did something on that yesterday. That was the last episode I did for The Cut, which came out yesterday. And I wanted to share that and finish off with the algorithms today on Weird Science and get into this and kind of do that. Kind of do a recap on a lot of the things that I went through. Now, I have made it up to episode 4, and I am really glad that I did that. I went through and I touched on a couple of other things too, like Morgellons. I did talk about Morgellons in this episodes, or in these episodes. I even brought it up on Teams in chat, and I discussed Morgellons with them and asked them what they thought that was, because at the time we were talking about skin diseases, and I had just finished talking about Morgellons on the show. And it was interesting because, like, Mark Edworthy said that he said hypochondriac. He said, I have one word to say, hypochondriac, and I was like, my goodness, Mark. I mean, of all things, just that's so horrible. But it was interesting. It was very interesting because most of the people that I was talking to were or are into like the paranormal. They're into things of this nature, stuff like this. And it was really amazing to hear their feedback when it comes to Morgellons. I thought that was pretty good. So I covered that, and then I also did a few other things that was old science. I mentioned the God helmet. Now the God helmet was pretty interesting. That was something I remember that was always mentioned back in the day. These days, not too many people talk about it. I really enjoyed doing it, especially with all the stuff that I've been learning when it comes to artificial intelligence and how now they have the MP. Uh, let me say that right because I'm gonna mess it up. Okay, MPUs instead of the CPUs. I want to say NPCs when I know it's MPUs. I always have a mistake of doing that. But yeah, and now they have MPUs, which are trying to imitate the human brain, the way we process things and stuff of that nature. And they really want to incorporate elasticity into these MPUs like our brain has. Like if we have any kind of damage in the brain, our brain will do this on their own without our assistance or telling it to do it, but it'll reroute itself so that it can actually work around that damaged area of the brain. Sometimes it does it naturally, sometimes it does it through like a repetition, you know what I mean? Exercise, things like that. Like if you have a thumb that was damaged and can't freaking work because of something in your brain, or if you just had a damaged thumb, you can actually train that thumb through repetition to work again. And that would cause your brain to reroute itself so that it could allow that brain to be, or that thumb to be used again. So some pretty cool stuff there. Like I said, I really did enjoy doing this, but pulling up the information was really, really, really tough. Now, if you like the theories that I was talking about, the one thing you really have to check into is the Kardashev scale. Now, that is another good one. It's it's a method they use to measure a civilization's level of technology, and that in of itself is pretty interesting. Um, Nikolai Kardashev was the one who came up with it, and he was a Soviet astronomer. And he just basically, well, it was he envisioned it. He envisioned a framework for understanding like the development of intelligent civilizations, and not here, or not just here on the Earth, but all in the uh, cosmos, like on a cosmic scale. Um, and that was something that I was really really cool with. I thought that was nice. So I put 15 minutes into 16 minutes actually into music from Hacker Radio, brought to you by Mr. Robot, aka Illuminati. Um, and he has a channel on Rumble called Hacker Radio. If you guys like that songs and everything, go check him out. But I wanted to say that was 16 minutes, and we are up to an hour and 34 minutes. So I think I've done pretty good on my episode today. I was able to get my reading in for um, the algorithm. And I said this yesterday too when I brought it up on the cut, but I'm going to say it again. I've always been curious about the algorithm, and this has to do with even the whole thing about streaming and how everything is measured on YouTube and Facebook and everything according to an algorithm. And it's always stuck with me. So I finally took the time to go in and do the research on the algorithm. You know what I mean? And I thought that was worthy of actually doing research on it. I'm glad I did it. It was something that I enjoyed doing. So before I get off of here, I could go and check and see if anybody's made any comments. I haven't um, gotten any on YouTube or Rumble, but I am still on Twitch, and I am also on Kick as well as DLive. Well, no, not DLive. Not DLive. It doesn't look like anybody is on Twitch who wants to make a comment, and no comments on Kick. I'm good to go. So that means I get to go ahead and end the show. And I'm going to double check, make sure nothing actually came up on DLive. It's kind of sad, to be honest with you. I mean, it was doing so good. DLive was. I've been streaming pretty good on there for the last couple of days. Got a lot of good shows on that are pretty cool. We just started Cafe Enigma Saturday nights. Anybody who wants to check that out, check it out. It's a pretty cool show. At least the first one was. We did that last night, Saturday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Central time, 7 o'clock Mountain time, 6 o'clock Pacific time, and it's also, let me count, 1 a.m. GMT, which is over in England and the United Kingdom. So if you guys want to check it out, check it out. It's pretty cool. It's Cafe Enigma, where we will be talking about things that pertain to old clips from In Search of and Cosmos and things of that nature, which this would probably be the best channel to mention that on. But you'll hear a lot of cool stuff that pertains not only to science but other things as well, which we'll be discussing in a roundtable with a group of people. And if you guys want to stop in and check that out, feel free to do so. You're more than welcome. And let me know what you think, So other than that, I also want to let everybody know that this week, Summer Todd and Austin Todd said that they are going to come back in to do another episode of Summer's Creepy Corner. This is the second episode that they're going to be doing, and it is going to pertain to the spirits or the ghosts of 9/11. Once I get confirmation from them, when they're going to do it, we will most likely have MC Dirty Work on the show with them, because he is very knowledgeable when it comes to what took place on 9/11. So he's going to be on there. And if you are on DLive and you know who MC Dirty Work is, or even if you don't know MC Dirty Work and you're on DLive, check him out on 9/11. He's going to be at Ground Zero, and he is going to be live streaming off and on. So go to his channel, check him out, and after that, hopefully we will have it set up to where he will be on the show for Summer's Creepy Corner sometime this week. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be on Friday, but I'm not quite sure. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure, but not 100%. They usually do their shows about 8 p.m., 7 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. their time. So, and they're on the East Coast. That'll be um, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and 2 p.m. No, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 a.m. General Motors Time, GMT. That's over in England, in the United Kingdom. So we got that going on. I also wanted to say thank you to DK Spiracy, who did an excellent interview with me last Friday. That was an excellent show, and I enjoyed doing the interview. Thank you for being on for Wow Talk. And if you guys want to check that out, you can check it out in the live stream playlist on the Wonderful World of Weirdness, both on YouTube and Rumble. They might still have it up on D Live, Kick, and Twitch. Well, not Twitch. I don't ever save video on Twitch, but on Kick and D Live. So, yeah. I stream on Rumble, Twitch, Kick, D Live, and YouTube. You can find me on Rumble and Kick at the Wonderful World of Weirdness. Now on Twitch, I am infamous, or at infamous 1969. On Kick and D Live, I am Roger_Hanson. You can find me at all of those platforms if you want to go to those platforms and watch me. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this show, please like, subscribe, share, make comments down in the comment section, guys. I love getting comments. I will talk about comments until somebody finally says hi. I'm sick of it. But thank you for watching, and I'm going to go ahead and end the show because I do not want to run my mouth for another 3 minutes and 30 seconds so that I can make it officially an hour and 45 minutes. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Look, thanks for being here. Bye. Yes, 1 hour and 43 minutes.